Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Let's start our video with a story of petty revenge on an angry store customer. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Deli customer gets her own back. Years ago, I used to work casual stacking shelves at a supermarket, Safeways in Vic, Australia. Shortly after I left, and thus still good friends with the other workers there, was doing some shopping late one night, midweek, skeleton staff, one person on register, etc. Pretty much an empty store. Anyway, come time to hit up the deli, I grab a ticket, even though the only one in line, and wait for the girl attending to finish cleaning up some mess from a previous order/carving while exchanging small talk with her. Now, while I'm waiting patiently, another customer, ugly woman, rude, obnoxious, think Honey Boo Boo's mom, has approached the counter and immediately demands service. The girl working lets her know I'm next as soon as she finishes cleaning. Not good enough. Entitled B is in a hurry and needs to be served right now. I gesture that I'm fine to wait and let the girl attend her first. I think the chuckle I made at the time triggered the smart arse in the woman, and she decided to turn it up a notch and be a customer from hell. I'm talking taking ages to make up her mind for each item she wanted, ordering things like a single slice of ham, chicken loaf, salami, etc., each to be carved fresh, spacing her purchases to ensure they were from opposite ends of the counter, etc., refusing order that goes a couple of grams over the 250 grams she requested, etc. The huge sarcastic thank you and smirk at me once she finally finished her choices just topped it all off. After this, I got my half-dozen slices of ham and returned to shopping. 15 minutes or so later, I head to the checkout with my trolley, only a single line open. Happens to be a friend. Guess who gets in line after me? Yup, the bee from the deli. No one else lining up, so I decide it's petty revenge time. Can you please price check this for me? I ask my friend on the register. She calls the floor boy who runs up, grabs the item, heads down the aisle with it to check the price on the shelf against the scanned price in return. I pass a few more items over for scanning, then price check on this one too, please. Rinse repeat for the rest of my trolley. My friend on the register had no real idea what was going on, but twigged with what I was doing and started enjoying the performance. Not so much Queen Bee, who was absolutely fuming, breathing heavy, and turning red by the fourth price check. Oh damn, I forgot to grab milk. One sec, as I dawdled off to the dairy fridge at the other end of the store once I passed my last item over. The sarcastic thank you and smirk I gave while locking eyes with the horror behind me was just pure brilliant revenge. Speaking with my friend later, I was told she heard the tale of the horror deli customer while on her break with the deli girl later that night. She burst out laughing and filled her in on the payback that happened at the other end of the store. Needless to say, my standing went up in the small goods department after that. And our next story. But you said those reports were important. About 17 years ago, I was a night auditor at a very nice hotel. Every night, I would go through the transactions, balancing everything to the penny, and then I would run the audit, close out the day in the accounting/reservation software. When I ran the audit, it prompted the system to print off a long series of reports and then had to put together a big packet of documents for the accounting assistant, Melissa, who is both dumb as a box of rocks and snotty as hell. I was constantly getting notes and calls about the most ridiculous things. My boss, the hotel manager, couldn't stand her, but she worked for corporate. For example, on one of the reports that she demanded that I create in Excel, she had a field where she wanted me to put the weather as it was at noon that day. I was a night auditor. I was generally asleep at noon. I once asked her why she didn't just fill that in herself as she was actually awake at that time of day, and I typically was not, and got a snappy answer about it being my job. She was a huge pain in the butt. But back to this particular incident. Our system had an odd quirk. When printing the end-of-day reports, it produced a page for every transaction type possible, even if there were no transactions of that type for that day. However, the page would be blank. So, for example, if no one paid with an American Express card, there would be a cash report, then a Visa report, then a blank page, then Discover, and so on. At the end, it was a master report that listed all the transaction types and stated how many transactions were of that type and the dollar amount. While putting together these packets one night, I realized that we were wasting a fair amount of paper by including these blank pages, which would end up being filed and never see the light of day again. I started taking the blank pages out and putting them back in the printer. After all, the master detail report showed why the page was not there, no transactions, and there were 2 other reports that would show that as well. Melissa flipped out. She called me at 11 a.m. and woke me out of a dead sleep to yell at me about how much she needed those reports. I listened, then calmly asked her, "Melissa, why do you need them? They're blank pieces of paper." Her, "Because I need to show that there were no transactions." You have 3 places in the packets that make that clear. The master report says outright 0 transactions, $0. But I still need them. But they're blank. If I shuffled the papers and put the pages out of order, you wouldn't even be able to tell one from another, right? Well, yeah. So what's the point of having them? Long silence. I just need them. They're very important, so always put them in the packet from now on. Okay then. The next night, as the reports churned out of the printer, I stuck 5 blank pieces of paper in each place where a blank page had been put by the system and bundled up the packet as usual. I got a very confused phone call the next day. "Why are there all these extra pieces of paper in the audit packet? You wanted the blank pages. You said they were very important." "But why are there extras?" Me with a smile on my face. "You said those reports were very important, so I made extra copies for you." Silence. Then a phone rang in the background and she had to go answer it. The next night, the hotel manager was waiting for me with a crap-eating grin. "You can go ahead and put the blank pages in the printer." She flipped out about it to the head of accounting, who agreed with you, and then she flipped out on me and told me we need to talk to you about it. So OP, thank you for giving me a good laugh today. And our last story. Greedy landlord refused to return deposit for renovated apartment. So this happened around 4 years ago, and I haven't told anyone about this out of fear of someone linking my username to me in real life. At the beginning of my junior year of college, I moved out of my parents' house and into a quadplex, old house turned into 4 apartments. My parents weren't helping me out, and I had a minimum wage job, so the apartment was the best I could do. It was in the middle of an old downtown neighborhood, and this house was originally built in 1906. The wooden floors had large slopes, the walls were cigarette yellow, the large sliding door in the middle of the place was off the hinges, the drop ceiling in the kitchen was missing, and the ceiling in the bathroom had a tile completely taken over by black mold. That's not all. The kitchen had no cabinets, there was a bird's nest somewhere, never found it, the back door had a large gap at the bottom and had 2 complete holes from carpenter bees, the toilet had a permanent black ring. There was no central air and heating, and if you plugged up too many things at once, the breaker would blow. It got so cold some nights that the water in my glass would freeze into a solid ice cube. To top all of that off, the lady above me was a hoarder and had 20-plus cats. There was a major flea infestation that had spilled over into my apartment. The landlord was pretty upfront about everything. He didn't really care about the state of the apartment and priced it really low to get someone like me who'd just deal with it. I was a kid and it was my first place, so I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. I was just grateful to have shelter. So I moved in and got permission to renovate the place with expenses being reimbursed. I cleaned and painted the walls, fixed the 15-foot sliding door, replaced the drop ceiling, the black mold was really disgusting, flea-bombed the place twice, fixed the bathroom up as best I could, replaced the back door, sealed all the holes everywhere, replaced outlets, the whole 9 yards. It went from being a miserable pile of trash to a fairly livable apartment. After about 11 months, I decided that I could not deal with the intense winter nights and made a deal with my landlord to find replacement tenants to move in. Since I signed a 12-month lease, I found a nice couple who really liked the place and the landlord allowed them to take over the lease. Here's where the crap hit the fan. When I asked for my $400 deposit back, the landlord straight up refused. He said because I was a couple of days late on paying rent a few months ago, that my deposit had covered the late fee charges. There was never any agreement about late fees, and he never told me there was a problem when I would let him know that the rent might be a little late. I was furious. All the hard work I put into this place just to be told that I wouldn't even be getting my deposit back? We went back and forth for a few minutes before I said to him, "You don't want me living in this place for another week knowing that I won't be getting my deposit back." He responded by letting me know that he has recent pictures of the apartment that show the current state of it, and that if I damaged anything, he'd be taking me to court and making sure there was an eviction on my rental record. He also thanked me for texting him so that he could have proof in court when he sued me. Now is time for the revenge. I wanted to destroy the place like he'd anticipated, but I didn't want to tarnish my rental history so early in my life. I was also afraid of being sued, even though now I know that it's illegal to not return a renter's deposit for the reason he had. So I brainstormed for a bit and decided that since he had pictures, I had to do something you can't see. I went to the freezer and pulled out a giant bag of tilapia that I'd bought from Costco. I cut all 15-ish of them into 5 pieces. I went through the apartment and placed the fish in the ceiling, behind wall sockets, behind light switch covers, in the unused floor vents, and on top of the closet. I even undid all the doorknobs and placed the fish inside of them. I moved out the very next day and got into a much better apartment. A week later, I went to drop off the keys in the mailbox, but curiosity got the best of me and I wanted to see my masterpiece. I opened the door and was greeted by a giant wave of the most foul smell that has ever assaulted my nasal cavity. I quickly closed the door back up, dropped the keys in the mailbox, and left. A few weeks later, the landlord had come to my new apartment and was banging hard on my door. "Who the hell do you think you are? You think this is over, smart butt?" With a giant smile, I said, "Looks like it," and closed the door on his face. Still makes me smile when I think about it. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.